All right, Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have Chelsea Nenni of Late Slip. Chelsea is a singer-songwriter and guitarist, and Late Slip is a Brooklyn-based retro pop outfit. They take all the excitement from 60s rock, surf music, and honky-tonk country sounds and fuse it together for a modern, exciting experience with vintage flavor. And what brings it out is Chelsea's voice. So Chelsea and I, during this conversation, we track her journey, and it's an incredibly inspiring journey. She starts as a kid who is in opera, right? Moves to New York, does jazz, and then found herself in this project, which is now this sick rock and roll music. And what I find most inspiring about her story is, like, coming from opera and musicals, it's a very dedicated, focused practice, right? And then you have to kind of learn to let go and let some of the mistakes and some of the raw realness seep in to do rock and roll right. So her whole journey is like this dedication to like this letting go, which ultimately for any creative is kind of your journey. And I think you guys are going to really be moved by her story. Before we get to that, she has a record coming out with Late Slip. It's called I Love You. It comes out June 7th on all streaming platforms, and we are going to listen to a tune. This is the last tune off the record called Tidal Wave, and the group's Late Slip. Check it out. Late Slip, Knock You Out's the tune, available on all streaming platforms June 7th. Now, Late Slip's got a handful of recordings out now that you can check out. So, to find any of this, Late Slip, on all the social medias and the streaming platforms, do yourself a favor, check it out. There's going to be a release show that accompanies the digital release in Brooklyn. You can get all the information on their site. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation. Before we can get into it, if you hear anything you like, if you could like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, that helps me keep talking to cool guests like Chelsea and sharing their insights with you. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Chelsea. Dig it. Well, I guess to jump into it, I mean, your story is pretty interesting going coast from coast, but can you tell me about working at Amoeba Music?
Oh, yeah, of course. That was wild. I grew up so my parents are from upstate New York, and I was born on the East Coast, but when I was 3 months old, my dad, who's a radio guy, got a job at a radio station in San Jose, California. So they moved out, we all moved out there when I was a baby, and I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I was in high school, we moved to the East Bay. So I grew up in San Jose, but we moved to like the Oakland, Berkeley area. And there is an Amoeba Music in Berkeley. And so when I was like in middle school and high school, that was like a special thing me and my dad would do. On like the weekends, we would like go to the record store together. And he always would take me to shows because he's like, rock radio guy my whole childhood. So that was like our special thing. And so when I moved to LA, I was like, I have to work at Amoeba. Like, I don't know. I was like, I just have to. It's like this dream of mine. I also grew up like on Empire Records. That was like my favorite movie. And so I was like, no, this has to happen. This is like a small dream, that needs to come true. And I'm telling you, dude, within a week of moving there, I had a job. Like my second day in LA, I just walked into the store and I went to the buy counter or whatever. And I was like, here's my resume. Like, who do I talk to? And they're like, okay, we never hire. Like, we don't hire people. We have a full staff. And I was like, okay, that's cool. But I brought my resume anyway. And then I'm like 4 days later, they were like, actually, we need somebody. So like I got the job and it was amazing. I like started at the counter, just like cashiering. But then I had come to the table with like a lot of skills. I was like, I'm a writer and I've done events and all this stuff. So they were like, wow, we actually need somebody to write for the website and to edit those what's in my bag videos. So I was like, cool, I can totally do that. So I got to do that. And then they're like, oh, we really need help with the in-stores. We need somebody to help us like wrangle the fans with the sign-in line and like get the green room ready and like all the day of stuff, and should like welcome the bands and introduce them on stage. And I was like, yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah.
It's like so sick. I was like, what else do you need me to do? This is so cool. And I would have worked there forever, but I was like, single, like taking care of myself in LA, making like $11 an hour. Do you know what I mean? And I like couldn't afford my life. And so I had to leave. But the time I spent there so special. Some of my best friends that I've made. That's like how as you saw in my bio, how I made my first record and how I met Bob Bruno from Best Coast, who then linked me up with Lewis, my producer to this day, who then linked me up with Nick Waterhouse. It was like the most magical cycle of events. And it's like when my parents were like, "Why are you moving to LA?" I was like, "Because that's where all my heroes live. That's where all the bands I listen to live, and I want to be there because I'm going to interact with them." And then I did. It was like so great. You know what I mean? It's like super cosmic.
It's great. Yeah. It's so, when it's kind of distant like that, it's so kind of like unfathomable, but you know what I mean? It's maybe, not always, but occasionally is just moving to where they're at. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like literally, I just was like, I don't know how else to explain this to you guys. Like, I know LA is really big and all this stuff, but I mean, the way even I got to know Bob even more than just, as a customer at the store was there's this really cute rock and roll bar, the hell is it called? Footsie's, in East LA. And they used to have a metal night, like on Tuesdays or something. Yeah. And this one night, Bob Bruno from Best Coast was like DJing this metal night. And my best friend, Maggie from Amoeba, and I were like, "Oh, let's go support Bob. He's so nice." Like, and we ended up getting there early and no one else was there except for us two and Bob. And then he like was like, "Hey, like, what are you guys talking about?" And like wanted to like be friends with us. So we all started, he was so nice. And we were like, "Okay, this is sick. Now we're kind of friends with Bob because he just is here and we're here. And this is life, like, yeah, it's so rad."
And there's like, I haven't been to Amoeba a lot, right? I've only been there a handful of times, being in a different state, way far away. Yeah. But it's the few times I went, there's something kind of like magic about that record store, there's like, and I didn't even see anyone cool. It wasn't like an event or anything. I'm just like, you walk in and
you were
like,
just there.
Right. And like this whole, the monstrosity of like collected sounds and like people's lives reserved, you know what I mean? There's something breathtaking about it. And like, it's so like, cause my aunt lived in California for a bit. So when we would go visit her, she would take us up, and if we could, we'd make it down there and we would go to one of the amoebas. But that's like, to work there, like, man, that had to be super cool. Like,
it was so cool. It was like the quintessential, because it was a really big deal. Like, I went to college in Southern California. I went to a school in Orange County at a really great, it's called Chapman University, and they have an awesome music program. So that's why I went there. And it's like I'm obsessed with No Doubt. That's my favorite band since I was 9. And like literally, I was like a high schooler, and I was like, no, I have to go to school in Orange County because that's where No Doubt's from. like, because they're from like Anaheim, Fullerton, Long Beach, like that whole area. And so, well, Long Beach isn't Orange County, but the zone. And so I literally went to school like 10 minutes from Disneyland, 20 minutes from Newport Beach, like in the town where That Thing You Do was filmed.
Yeah.
Okay. Little like 1960s with the Army, Navy. That was my school. That was my town that I went to school in. And I was like, and that's my favorite movie. And so I was like living all these weird little dreams, like in real life. But yeah, so I had lived in, Orange County in this little 1950s town, but moving to LA, like, is nuts, by yourself. I had moved to New York when I was 26 by myself. I just do that where I'm like, okay, I'm going to show up by myself and like figure this out. So yeah, it was really gratifying to go there with all these weird little dreams and then have them pretty much immediately manifesting. Like, yeah, it made me feel like I made a good decision. I was like, good job.
No, but for real, to do something as catastrophic as like move yourself to this giant pond or whatever metaphor we're going to use.
So scary.
And to get a bite, I mean, that's incredible. But also, I feel like when when an individual goes there knowing what they want to do and being that kind of full force about it within themselves, that attracts the opportunities that you're seeking,
Yes.
But a couple questions within what we were just talking about. So your dad ran a radio show. What type of music was your dad playing?
Yeah. So my dad's like the coolest guy ever. And he started off like in rock radio in the 70s. He was a DJ. He went to Syracuse University to study broadcasting in upstate New York, and he like did the thing. And then, so when I was growing up, he was always like he transitioned from being a DJ to running the radio station, you know, as like his career. So he was the operations manager of this rock, like modern rock, you know, radio station in San Jose. And this was like in its peak, you know, when I guess it used to be classic rock or something, but then when my dad, like in the early 90s, it transitioned to what they called modern rock. And that was just like all the like alt rock of the time. So like they were the station that like when No Doubt and Sublime and like Nirvana and like all the best bands of our, you know, youth was like huge. They were the station playing it. And my dad was the guy in charge of all of the DJs. He hired Carson Daly for his first job.
Yeah.
Like when I was 10, Carson Daly and his other buddies that worked at the station used to come over our house for spaghetti because they were like 22.
Yeah.
And it was just, they were so cute and nice. And my dad hired all the DJs. He ran all of the big like summer concerts and winter concerts they would have. They called it Camp KOME, and they would have it at this like big amphitheater called Shoreline, in Mountain View, California. And yeah, it was just like the raddest like music festival. So I was like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid with my little jean jacket and my mom and dad like going to all these shows being like, oh my God, this is cool. So yeah, he just basically, all the music that inspired me growing up, that was my dad's job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like playing it on the radio. Yeah, it was nuts. Howard Stern was their morning show. So I remember every morning I to this day don't like talk radio because that was like on the way to school my entire childhood. I was like, oh, these guys won't stop laughing and talking about like gross stuff. I'm so stupid, you know? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. So it was kind of like, well, aside from like, was music in the family? Like, did your dad play music? Did your mom play music?
No.
That's interesting.
It was so funny. I mean, my dad played guitar in high school. Incidentally, he had a high school band called Nirvana.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. Like in the 60s, 70s, like up in upstate New York. And then later he was like, see, that was a good name. But yeah, they always joked that they were like, we don't know how this happened because neither of us can sing or play instruments. But there was so much music in the house. Do you know what I mean? Our whole focus as a family. And it wasn't just rock. Like my parents were obsessed with Prince. And so like all these different styles. My dad really loves jazz. And my mom loved like Patsy Cline and like that classic country too. And she also like loved Salt and Pepper and like all this stuff. So there was just like all different genres, just like filling the house all the time. It was so cool.
But just even have like a kind of family focus on music, you know what I mean? And being like, listen to this, you know, that's such a unique kind of like form to like have a whole, like to have everyone kind of based around, but not kind of actively doing. Like when you actively see it as a kid and you're like, oh, it's a thing I can do, but just to kind of, you know, passively like partake it, which is its own active, you know, process, is a really interesting like way to get like hooked in.
Yeah, it was like osmosis. You know what I'm saying? It's just like there all the time. And I didn't know that wasn't normal.
Yeah. Well,
do you know what I mean? Like I had friends whose parents wouldn't let them listen to like the Beatles, or like my friend Becca got Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill record in fourth grade. No. And her mom made her return it. She made her take it back to the store because there was too many swear words. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh yeah, that's not a thing in my house. Like I wasn't allowed to like date boys or like do anything like that until like I was 16, but I was going to like when I was 16, not dating boys, I was going to see Weezer by myself in San Francisco with my friends. You know what I mean? Like on the train, I had to call them like 12 times, but it was like, the rules were like different for different things. Right. And I'm glad. You know, the boy, I don't care anymore. Then I was very frustrated. I was like, I can't hold hands with boys. But now I'm like, wait, you were going to so many concerts. Like, you're fine. Way cooler.
Well, for sure. But it's always the thing you can't do. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Your other friends, like, you can go on the train to see Weezer by yourself.
Yeah. Well, I was like, yeah, but I can't slow dance with Scott Clifton at the, you know, I feel like such a loser. I'm like, no, actually.
Funny. But it's interesting, like, where those lines are drawn. Like, your parents knew that, like, oh, it's a concert, this will happen, you'll be used to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And they were with me all the time before. Like, they went with me to everything. So, like, they could trust me. They knew I knew how to behave. I knew how to be safe. You know what I mean? Like, but like, it was very much, Yeah, they definitely shaped my whole relationship with music in that it was good and it was special and it was always around, and so that's like, yeah, I'm grateful for that.
Well, that's incredibly special, and you know, like,
Yeah.
so as having all these like kind of outlets, what do you,
Yeah.
I get, what was your? I don't know if it matters, but like, what was your
Yeah.
first concert you went to, and then what was
Oh
like
my
the one
gosh.
that really made you like, I want to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So technically, my first concert when I was like 4 was the Grateful Dead. I'm not joking. At that amphitheater I was telling you about, Shoreline, my mom and dad took me, and I guess I had a tie-dye dress on naturally and all the things. And I think my mom said I said something about, look at all the necklaces. I was like, so high. No. But the first show though that I like specifically asked my dad to take me to see, and I got a special outfit at like TJ Maxx, and I was like so excited, was Peter Gabriel.
Wow.
Actually,
Yeah.
when I was 9, that's when like the record with Steam came
Yeah.
out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like, oh man, I was hooked. I thought he was so cool. And I remember my dad obviously got like free tickets through the station, and we were in the front. And I, yeah, had this little like, I'll never forget these like rust orange like jean shorts and this like plaid like sleeveless like shirt. I just thought it was so freaking cool, but I couldn't believe it. I like was like blown away, and then I wrote him a thank you note and drew a picture of like Peter Gabriel with the Steam. And I remember he like put it up in his office at the radio station, and they were like, your daughter's like, that's so weird and cool that she like, that's what she wants,
That's so goofy. Yeah.
But the concert obviously that changed everything, that like shaped my life and made me want to do this, was when his radio station KOME had their like Christmas concert. They would call it Almost Acoustic Christmas. I think K Rock in LA does something like that too now. And it was like the winter of 1994, and No Doubt played. Do you know what I'm saying? And like Only Just a Girl was out at that time, because that was released in October, I think, and this was December, and the whole record hadn't even been released yet because it came out in 95. But my dad knew, like, I remember the first time I heard Just a Girl, he was like driving me to ballet, or driving me home from ballet, and he was like, there's this song and I think you're going to like it. It had come on the radio, and he turned it up, and I just like couldn't speak. Like, I remember so distinctly, we like pulled into the garage and like didn't get out of the car until it was done. And then I was just like kind of shocked. And then I was obsessed with it. And then they played, and my dad like arranged, like, she was backstage in like 24 or whatever, you know what I mean? In this giant like faux fur coat. And she was so
Wow.
nice to me. I got to meet her, and I just like couldn't talk. I was like,
God.
Yeah. But then I saw them perform, and she was so sweet and so lovely and so like, oh, hi, how are you? Backstage, just such a little angel. And then on stage, she was like running around doing push-ups, being like, fuck you, I'm a girl. Like, you just like going nuts. And I was like, that's it. That's the only thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, and it didn't even manifest until so many years later, because my career took so many different turns before then. But that was like the moment that I was just like, this is it. She's like incredible. And I don't even know how it's possible that the person I met backstage is the same person doing that, right? It was just so powerful and fun, and yeah, it was nuts.
Well, no, that's huge. Like, to one to like kind of be in all of a thing, and then meet someone, have them be like so welcoming and cool.
Yeah.
And then to see it happen, that's so special too. Wow. Like, what an incredible experience. And no doubt it's like a band to not like bypass. Those guys are so incredibly good.
Yes. And it was crazy too to see the live stream from Coachella last weekend, and the weekend before, because they headlined, and they hadn't played in 9 years. And I actually happened to be home in California with my family. So it was my dad's birthday and my sister's birthday. We all like came home. And so I sat and literally watched it with my mom and dad and one of my sisters. And it was so crazy. And they were all like, oh my God, she still got it. Because they remember from when I was, a kid, and they would go see it with me, and I was just like obsessed. And it was so special to be kind of like with the people who were with me, as like that music and that person like totally shaped my life. And yeah, it was like a really special, like a family moment. You know what I mean? It was so cool. Yeah.
Well, it's like
They,
artists like that, like everyone's experiencing that same type of passion, right, in their own way.
yeah,
So the kind of like especially with your family that knows them and like introduces, or
yeah,
at least business adjacent knows
yeah,
them, and
yeah,
you know what I mean.
totally.
They're like that's so cool.
Thank you.
I guess so. Uh, you were doing ballet so were you doing
Yeah.
like so you're dancing so
Hmm.
even though it wasn't playing music at this point, you're doing now, it's like not just music as a thing the family's involved with, but something that
Yeah.
you actively do. So
Yeah.
how many, I guess my question is, how many steps was it, like ballet, then like learning to play something or singing, like how many steps till uh, from like this
Yeah.
amazing music experience did it go before you were actually making your own?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the craziest part of it all is
Yeah.
like, so yes, it's so bizarre and cool. Like now when I look back, I'm like, it just like blows my own mind because it doesn't, and not that it doesn't make sense, it totally makes sense, but it's just like the past. I couldn't have predicted it, I guess. So at that point, yeah, I'm like 9 years old and like doing like being a little kid and doing ballet. And I think I started like I always loved to sing when I was little, but I was like like really shy about it. But my grandpa was really sweet and would be like, "You should sing, you should sing," and he would like make me put on these like shows like
Aw.
in my like the family room when I was like 6. I would get
Yeah.
so embarrassed because I was just shy, and he was like, "It doesn't matter, you need to sing." So then I think I auditioned for some like musical, some like kids like theater thing. And I was so embarrassed and so shy, but I had a pretty voice, and I really loved to sing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this, even though I would get really scared and all this stuff. But then there was this, this like outreach program, the local opera company, Opera San Jose, which is like a very big professional company, but they had this like elementary school outreach thing where they would have like one of their main singers, so like the tenor, who was like a principal artist at the company, and one of the music directors came to our school, to my elementary school, and then they like put on a production of like The Wizard of Oz, but they rewrote all of these like classic arias, like these like really famous arias from, famous operas. And then they changed all of the lyrics to be about like things about the Wizard of Oz and obviously in English. So it wasn't like we were singing Italian or whatever. And I like had the guts to audition for that somehow. And then I got cast as like Dorothy, and my big song was like one of the most famous arias of all time, but they changed it to just be about wanting to go home or something like, and it was like, and they made it much lower so it wasn't like crazy, but that was like my first real experience like really performing and like acting and singing. And actually all of like Carson Daly and all the other DJs came to see it. Like all, they were like 20, they all came to support because I was like their little sister,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, after that, then I kind of like actually did some professional operas when I was like a kid. They always have like in operas, they'll have like a kid role. Sometimes there's like I don't know if you're familiar with like the magic flute. There's like these three little spirits. So I like got to do that. And then La Boheme, which is like what Rent is based on and stuff. I was one of the little street urchins. So I actually, until I like aged out, was doing like professional operas when I was like 10 years old. It was so random and cool and bizarre. And that happened. And then I sort of got too old. Like when you're 13 and plus, there's no more kid roles and you have to kind of do something else. So then I did like musical theater, but I didn't really like it because it wasn't like serious. Do you know what I mean? I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, they're all like being so childish. And I was like, I just like, can we just be professional? I don't know. It was so weird. And then, yeah. And then I kind of like did that until I did like musical theater stuff because that's like what you can do in high school. And I started to learn how to play, like, because this is the thing is that I was like obsessed with like rock and roll. And like that was the only music I listened to. But then I started kind of like all my, I would go see like local bands that like were like high school bands. I would go to like the community center, and see like all ages shows and then go to like real shows. And I started to learn how to play guitar, but then it's a whole thing, but I had like a back surgery in high school because I had scoliosis. And so it kind of knocked me out. I had just started learning how to play guitar and was like, okay, I'm going to like try to do this thing. And then I like was sort of out of commission for a while. So I ended up like just continuing like with singing, and was like, I basically decided to go to school for singing to be a, like an opera singer. Cause that was what I had experienced. Right. I was like, okay, and that's like a serious thing. Like you can get a degree in opera or, music and whatever. And then basically like did that, graduated school, did some operas, but then was always in the chorus because I was like too young and like didn't have I have, like, you've heard my voice. It's not like a big opera voice. It's more of like a Disney princess voice. So like basically they were like, well, you're not going to get to be a lead person until you're 35 or whatever. When your voice, I was like, that sucks. That's boring. So like, fine, I'll do musicals. So then I just like did musicals, and it was actually really fun. I got to be Peter Pan, and that was like nuts. I got to fly, and like it was crazy and throw glitter. Like that was the best. Like I peaked at 24. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I'll never do anything cooler than Peter Pan. So then I like retired from theater and started doing jazz. I was like, because at this point I'd moved to New York, and I was like, okay, you know what's cool is like 1920s jazz. So I'm gonna like go to these little speakeasies and like play jazz and like be Peggy Lee basically. And I like did that for a while, and that was cool. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna write my own like cabaret shows, like a one-woman show where I did this nerdy like rock history thing.
Yeah.
So I did like a one-woman like cabaret show where I was called Rock and Roll Cabaret, and I basically explained the history of rock and roll from like, I started at like the 50s with like, which obviously it's not one rock stuff, but I like started with Elvis Presley, and then we went to like the 2000s, but I did like New Orleans jazz versions of those songs with like a piano player.
Yeah.
It was nuts. And then I was like, okay, we did that for a while. And then I was like, well, now I want a full band behind it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. But then you know what happened once I put a full band behind it? Then somebody was like, oh, you guys are such a good cover band. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to be in a cover band. Yeah. That wasn't the intention. So then I was like, well, I better figure out how to learn how to write songs, because I really don't want to be in a cover band. And then I just like figured it out, and then taught myself how to play guitar, because I was living in New York, and it was winter, and I was cold, and I was like frustrated that as a singer, I'd always relied on other people to accompany me. And I was like, well, this is trash. Like, I need to figure it out myself. And then did that, and then basically morphed into basically exactly where I had always wanted to be, which was being in a band. But it literally took me 20 years to get there. I didn't teach myself how to play guitar and start a band until I was 29 years old.
But you were doing it the whole time. Holy shit. Like,
but it was,
you know what I mean? Like that whole arc up into that, because opera, like to go to school for that, you had to take like 3 languages. You know what I mean? I
did music theory every day for 4 years. It was so hardcore.
And like, well, you're knocking out all the kind of like, I mean, because I went to school for music too. Like you're knocking out all that.
You get it.
Yeah. Oh no, you're
it's so hardcore, and you're doing all your JEs. You're basically doing 2 degrees, because you're doing a liberal arts degree and your conservatory program, basically.
Yep, and you got to do all the ensembles, and holy shit,
yes.
it's a packed
choir.
Packed couple years, and like but like so to get through, you go through all the kind of bullshit training, right? It pays off. I'm not trying to say it not.
Does. No. I know, like, but it's so gnarly.
It's so mathematic and such a bummer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, and they're like, stay still. Why are you moving so much? Get to the crooked piano. I'm like, why can I not walk around? I don't understand. Why do you need me to stay right there? It doesn't make any sense. They look so bored. I have to entertain these people.
Well, it's an interesting world too, right? Coming from like the like kind of do it yourself, like original group act mindset compared to the academic mindset. It's a total A and B, and like I think the best is somewhere in the middle, like where you know what I mean. But to go from doing operas like that to being like, I'm gonna do jazz, is like, that's a huge stylistic shift, and there's a lot of like musicality to attend to and then to dive headfirst and go to New York. Like that's incredible. Like,
thank you.
I mean, it takes a lot of drive and within oneself to be like, I'm gonna figure it out. So like I guess my question is with that, like, were you
Yeah.
diving into that music? Was there a bug that made you like? Because in certain stuff, I guess to a tier, like, okay, you're not going to get anything till you're 35 is a bummer. Like, so
Yeah, man.
shifting
Nobody wants
gear,
to hear that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
especially
like, cool.
after.
I'll just hang out until then and be in the chorus. That sucks. That's so boring. I'm a little really short too. They're not even gonna see me. Like I'm gonna be out there. Oh.
So I guess my question was: it hard to
Yeah.
switch from that style, from going from like an opera style, a serious style, which is
Yeah.
incredibly entertaining, to go to like like middle school musicals and be like, why are you guys joking, like not serious
Right?
about this?
I felt like there was so much grab assing. Do you know what I mean? I just felt
Yeah.
like everybody was just trying to hook up and be stupid. And I was like, guys, we're doing Guys and Dolls. Okay. This is a really cool musical. Like I replaced somebody when I was in Guys and Dolls. I was supposed to be one of the boring like Salvation Army people. And then they were like, we need another hot box girl because one of them broke their leg. Can you
Oh,
tap
no.
dance? And I was like, yes. And I could not tap dance, but I
Yeah.
just I was like pretending that I could. It was classic. Yeah, that's been my whole life. I just kind of like, yeah, no, I can totally do this. And then I'm like, oh my God, now I have to figure out how to do this because I said I could. You know what I mean? Like, but yes, to answer your question, there was fortunately, I think the bridge between opera and jazz was the going back into musical theater for a while. Because when I moved to New York, I was like, okay, I want to be on Broadway. Like that seems dope. Like I feel like I was Peter Pan, so I can probably do anything. Like I'm just gonna go and do it, you know. And there's something when you are like a performer, you in your soul, you're like, I have to move to New York. I have to see what that's about. I have to. And living in New York, and I live in New York again now. It just smacks you in the face daily. You're just basically like faced with all of your fears and all of your lessons. Right? It's like the most intense place with the most intense growth out of anywhere I've ever lived, right? So when you come here, you can't like escape yourself, right? And I think that was very good for me artistically because I had come from such a serious academic, like restrictive background with performance and you know, and I was very good. I was like, oh, I'm so like, and I got into musical theater and then I'm like, okay, now I do musical theater and I only do that. I work during the day and I do theater at night and I was very focused and very, you know, academic about it. And so I came to New York and then it just like exploded all of my possibilities. I was like doing improv. I was like in a Walmart commercial somehow. I was like, and it was like so random. I was like in a short film in a subway station at 2 a.m. I was just doing everything. And I didn't know that was possible. Like I always thought you have to do one thing and you have to do it well. And then that's your thing now. And it just showed me, I was like, oh, I can do anything. And I don't honestly, dude, I mean, I just love that music. I love really like 1940s, like vocal jazz is like really like my sweet spot. Like Peggy Lee was one of my grandpa's favorites. And so I had all her records. And I think that's where I started. Judy Garland is like my hero, like Ella, like all these women. And so I don't really remember how it happened, but I think I was singing they had these like nights where they were like, oh, Broadway something night. And you go and sing 2 songs at this little club in Harlem. But I got up there and then I sang a Judy Garland song. Oh, you made me love you. And then I sang some other, I think I sang a Randy Newman song actually. And the guy was like, well, nobody's saying Broadway tonight. Like, I don't know what's happening. But then that piano player was like excellent and was a really great jazz, like boogie woogie, like very cool. He could do 40s, he could do 50s, he could do all of these things. So I think I just leaned into that and then started going to these jazz nights, like where you could sit in, like at these little speakeasies and weird places. And the hot jazz thing, the 1920s thing kind of happened because my song that I would always sing was Them Their Eyes, but you know, the Billie Holiday tune.
Yeah.
And sometimes, for whatever reason, every time I go, then they play it really, really fast. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. But it was great for me because I, you know, again, it's always so serious and so practiced and so meditated. And now it's like, okay, I have to just figure it out on a daily basis. Like, and so, yes, it was like good for me, I think, to have to dive in. And I think that's what gave me the courage to finally do rock and roll because it's so messy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not perfect. And you have to practice, and you have to be tight or it sounds bad a lot of the time. But but I think there's got to be this element of magic and like willingness to be flexible and not try to be, because you know when people are trying to be perfect, it's not very fun for anyone. Right. Like, so I think all of that was what primed me to finally, like, my greatest lesson, I genuinely think, as a musician my whole life, was teaching myself how to play guitar, because I sounded so bad. And I was like, it wasn't even so I could play on stage. It was really for me because I wanted to write songs better. And I was like, because I could play piano a little, but I was like, if I can accompany myself on guitar and if I can just learn these chords, then I'll have more range with which to write songs. And I would laugh because I'd be like, this sounds terrible. Like, it's so, but it was like a gift I was giving to myself. I was like, you don't have to be perfect. Just this once. You can just do it for you. You don't have to play in front of anybody ever. Like, it's okay. You know what I mean? And like, that was incredible. That I really, now thinking back, saying that all out loud, obviously was like what all of that other stuff was leading to, was me giving myself permission to just totally suck, but have fun. And then of course ended up getting good and playing on stage. You're right. But like, that wasn't the intention though. It wasn't like, you need to learn how to play guitar so you can be amazing. It was like, no, just I want to learn how to do this. And it frustrates me that I don't know how to do it. So I'm going to just do it. You know?
Yeah, but no, that's huge. Because coming from like a very disciplined practice, right?
That's
opera.
The word. Yep.
Holy shit. That's where you started as a kid. Like, that's heavy. That's very focused. That's very like serious. So the like, and then, but to have like the respect and kind of understanding and the weight from the rock that you've grown up with, like your family's, this is what you guys do, right? So there's kind of this respect and this honor to this sound, right? And that's an incredibly powerful thing to let yourself like do it wrong. Just be as bad as you can, and then like grow from that, because that's where that stuff happens, right? Like I feel a lot of people today, because of how recorded everything is, are afraid to make mistakes, afraid to be bad, afraid to be, you know what I mean? And doing that is so incredibly powerful as far as learning and growing, and like just to do that for yourself, that's huge. One of my voice teacher in New York, who trained some of the greatest, like, literal opera stars up in Met, and also the guy from the Spin Doctors. Students randomly, he would always say that to me when I started playing rock. He's like, you know, the Spin Doctors guys. That is exactly my genre. But no, he would get on my case. He'd be like, I'll literally never forget that. But no, he would get on my case and be like, why are you holding back? And I'm like, because I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake. He's like, why? I'm like, because of my past. Like, I don't have to explain to you. Like, I'm so terrified of not being perfect. He's like, well, you're holding yourself back. Like, you have to be willing to blow it. And like, it's fine. It was so interesting to have a classical musician tell me that, because that was so the opposite of how I had been trained. Right. Yeah. And like,
so cool.
Did you find yourself vocally at that point taking more risks as well?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. My voice has blossomed because of being in my band. Like, I can sing with more range and more clarity and more everything. And in a way too, where I don't get exhausted. Like I can be more economical with my voice and like make more sound and all this crazy stuff that I never could before. And what's so interesting is like, when you study classical music, especially as a singer, at least back in my day, when we had to walk to school in the snow, but they used to be like, if you belt, you're going to get nodes, you're going to ruin your voice. So that's why now remembering, me and my best friend Tessa, we wanted to start wait for it. We wanted to start a ska punk band in high school, a la Dance Hall Crashers. That was like our inspiration. But I was like, no, I'm doing auditions for college, so I can't ruin my voice, like, by singing in this band. I was so scared to write anything other than classical music because I didn't know how. And they didn't. Now, of course, my college has like a whole freaking jazz program and a theater program and all stuff. But when I was there, it was classical music only. So I didn't have the context, right, of how you do it and how you do it safely and healthily. And now I see that the way I'm singing with this band not only has expanded my range, but it's like the most honest singing I can do, because it's like the most like my actual speaking voice. Like, yeah, like
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, yeah.
I'm not doing singer voice. I'm just like being myself while singing.
Right. Well, like, cause
Yeah, it's weird.
I've taken a couple like classical like vocal lessons. Like I had to do a
Yeah.
couple, which is they really like it's the technique of how you breathe in more than
Yes.
and then how you act.
Yes.
Like I feel like that was most of the lesson was that
Yes.
basic foundation, right? And you do it so much to the
Totally.
point where you don't have to think about it, and then you're doing it, and like
Right. Exactly.
and like how you hold your like your mouth shape, right, and like
Uh huh.
what do they call it, soft palate movement and like all this stuff like
Yeah. Allowing it to rise. Yeah.
right you veer to where you are to meet this standard, so that's like to be able to find yourself like that is incredibly, especially after learning all the technique, right,
Yeah.
to be able to make it your own. That's huge.
Right.
So like
Right.
one thing you mentioned, and I wanted to like unpin, was you
Yeah.
said that thing you do is your favorite film. Um, Earlier in our
Yeah.
conversation, and like it's an incredibly awesome film. I love that movie,
Yeah.
and that tune in there is so catchy.
Oh God. It's honestly,
um,
we all should be so lucky to write a song as good as that
I
piece
know,
is.
I know, it's so
It's the perfect song.
it's so good. And all you have to do is speed it up.
That's it. He was so smart. Like Shades knew everything.
uh,
Guy Patterson forever. Yeah.
but that style, that kind of like
Yeah.
50s 60s style, and like and you with your music there, that resonates in there.
Yeah.
And one thing
Yeah.
I noticed, like going through your EPs, is like there's the EP Otherman,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like I said that in one word, and that was kind of weird. Otherman.
I like it. I'm gonna say that now. Otherman.
Yeah, I have an EP called Otherman,
Cute.
but like I feel like your voice is very well, like it's like where it is now, but like the music didn't quite match up to what it sounds like you were going for. Was this like
Right.
did you, I guess my question is, with like after all this like musicals and like
Yeah.
jazz and like rock and kind of like, what kind of made you want to do this kind of like a flavor of rock?
Because it's what I love the most, I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I think too that the reason, so like my second EP, like the real an EP, the reason
Mhm.
why the production and the vibe matches the voice, matches the feeling, is because of the producer I chose, who is totally in the same wavelength as me. Louis Pesacov. He's the guy who produced Crazy for You by Best Coast. Like that record. And yeah. And like he is so dialed in, right, to that sound, and he gets it, and he loves that music too. You know what I mean? And I think that's like when we sit and we're recording, there's a lot of time that we spend listening to Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood, because it
Yeah.
always seems to be like a through line. And this new record too, like, is very much, there's moments where it's like, okay, yes, this feels right. But I think that, yeah, Elvis Presley was my first love, musically and otherwise, when I was 4 years old. And like, it's just throughout my life that I'm always, sometimes when people say like, oh, I feel like I was born in the wrong time. Sometimes I'm like, I mean, thank God politically it's not, especially for women, the way it was back then. But I'm so much more drawn to even just like the fashion and all of it, like that. There's something about it, just feels comfy and good to me. Like the beat, like that thing you do, like that kind of music, it just like is my happy spot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I think that's why it was never really like an intentional choice. Like, I want it to be like this. That's just sort of how it comes out.
Gotcha. Well, it seems like just with all your background, it kind of funnels its way into that, like to come from a dedicated thing to learn how to be more free and to like have that style of, oh, we're going to do the standard but faster, which is like taking the jazz and making it rock and roll. You know what I mean? Like it's and to kind of like have that be like a film that you really enjoyed. You know what I mean? Like that like implants those things in your brain that like that, you know what I mean? Those are like big fundamentals for what comes out later. And like so as you're like kind of getting over everything and learning how to play guitar, are you learning
Yeah.
like jazz standards at that time? Like what are you learning rock tunes? Like cuz to have like a theory background, you kind of know what you need to know, you know.
Yeah. You know what I did? I think if I'm remembering correctly of how, so I was learning on guitar.
Mhm.
I was just learning easy songs that I liked. That like I would basically go through like Best Coast songs were really easy to play
Okay.
because they're
Yeah.
like simple. Like there were songs that I wanted to learn how to play, like Just a Girl, but that's like really hard.
Yeah. No doubt pretty
You know,
hard.
like, Jesus, it's
Yeah.
like really hard to play. And like Weezer songs were like really hard to play because I was thinking of like all like my, you know, happy like middle school stuff. And so I would just have to find, yeah, it was more, I think, but honestly, more than playing songs a bunch, I was writing them. I just needed to learn how to play the chords. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like back in the day when I started writing songs, I would write them by just singing the song out loud. Like I didn't know how to play the instrument yet, but I like would have
Okay.
basically the whole melody would come in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
like record it. I would like sing it into my phone. And so then I was like, okay, well, now I have this guitar. So, you know, yeah, before that I had a little like keyboard and I knew how to do chords because #music school, you know, and I was never a great piano player because I was way too impatient to learn how to
Oh man.
play it. I didn't like it. I didn't
Yeah.
like playing piano. And
It
now
kinda
I'm like,
it kind of
ugh, I
hurts.
wish I had practiced.
Yeah.
It's like not that fun. And
Yeah.
it takes forever. And I just felt like, and honestly, to be fair, and I realized this so much later, I thought that because I didn't enjoy playing piano and I wasn't naturally good at it, and this is such one of those like perfectionist mindsets, that I just wasn't good at playing instruments.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
going to ever be able to play an instrument because I couldn't play piano. I just didn't like playing piano. As soon as I started playing guitar and it was like fun, then I wanted to practice, right? And I got better and I was like, oh, it's just not a one size fits all thing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge too because like we put a certain like especially going through an academic setting or just being
Yeah.
around you put you subscribe a vision to reality in that
Yeah.
if you can't do that well you gotta find another part of reality where you fit and like
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly big deal to be like even though I can't do that I can do this, you know, and like
Right.
especially coming from like that dedicated of a upbringing, you know, because when
Right.
you're determined, you're gridlocked, you know, like
Yes.
and
Yes.
man, piano like when and learning it in school, like you get the lessons and like it's not like and you take the group classes. Did you have to do that group piano classes?
No.
Oh,
Oh God, that
okay.
would have been horrifying. Thank God I didn't. I would have been so embarrassed. No, I just like had private, you know, like in
Yeah.
school, we had to pass these proficiencies and I didn't. Like in my defense, I was taking 21 credits a semester. So it was like basically
Okay,
dead
yeah.
and working at
Yeah.
school
Oh my
and
God.
like all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, what I will say is that having to practice piano made me practice voice so much more. Because I'm really good at like, if I have to do one thing and I don't want to, then whatever else is the other option, I will go so hard. So I will say it probably helped me practice singing. But yeah, I would get in the room and my teacher like knew I hadn't practiced. And I would be like just being really fun and like telling jokes and like trying to distract them. And they're like, I know you haven't practiced. It's really obvious. So I like passed my proficiencies by the skin of my teeth. But thank God there were no other witnesses. It was just me. If there was a group of people, I don't even know what I would have done.
It's yeah, but like it's like it sucks because I also wish I like had more piano chops, but like, it's like what's different about guitar and piano is like with guitar you have kind of like a view of the window you want to get into. Like if I learn these Weezer songs, I'll know bar chords. I guess I can write stuff like I want to do. With piano, it's so vast and like all the starting points are like technical chops, you know. Like,
Yes. And if you're not like proficient, it will not sound good. You know what I mean? Like if with guitar, my little crutch that I used for years was I would have this this like fuzz pedal.
Yeah, there you
that
go.
actually that Bob Bruno made. It was called the Fluzzy, and it was like a metal pedal plus a garage rock pedal.
Yeah.
So it was just insanely distorted, but it covered up my mistakes.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it
yeah.
gave me the confidence. It was a crutch that I used for probably too long. I still use a little distortion because I like the way it sounds, but I definitely used that so I wouldn't get self-conscious. and it was smart. Like, you got to do what you got to do to, like, know,
Right. But just to get
I
out
don't
there and
know.
do it, and like, no, that's huge
Yeah.
because like you'd
Yeah.
think Hendrix isn't covering up shit. Like,
Right.
no,
Hello.
dudes, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But so okay, so when we get to like we haven't even this has been like an awesome like to hear your stories so far and like see
Thank
where
you.
it's been. It's super inspiring, and like
Thank you.
so we got the new record, I Love You,
Yeah.
and like these
Hmm.
tunes seem very and like this is like the first full length you've done with this
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Oh, where did
Hmm.
I guess where did Late Slip come from? As far as like you're in New York, right?
Hmm.
And this is where the group comes from. So like, and you move from the cabaret show,
Hmm.
and like I can't be doing covers. I got to be myself, right? So you start
Yes.
writing, and that's
Yes.
like where does Late Slip start, and like when do we start like getting these songs that we're hearing now
Yeah.
or going
Okay.
to hear now?
So, yes. Okay. So that other Men EP was the one I made with the guy I met at Amoeba.
Mm-hmm.
And that was recorded shortly after I moved to LA. And those songs had been written in New York. And I had had a different band, like a rockabilly swing band in New York, which was really cute and fun. Honey and the Misbehaviors.
Oh,
Don't
that's
forget it.
amazing. Yeah.
So cute. And that was dope. But then when I started writing the Late Slip songs, I was like, that's when I was like, I want to move to LA. I want to be where my heroes are, and, in rock and stuff. And then honestly, the songs that you hear now, some of them are really old. Like, some of them are like OG Late Slip, like live songs that just never, like, when I made the last EP, I was gonna record some of them, but then I ended up writing those Nick Waterhouse songs. And that seemed like really important and cool to include. So some of these songs are like 6 years old. Some of them were written in LA when I lived there. Some of them were written back in New York. And it's just like it feels really special. Some of them are brand new over the past year or so, especially the title track, I Love You. And New York City was written when I was not living in New York City and I missed it. Yeah. So it's like kind of like a really, and then Heart of Glass, that cover that's the through line because that's been in my set since the Honey and the Misbehavior days, and actually used to do it as a hot jazz cover like a
Yeah.
long time ago, and then transitioned it. That's always been like my happy song that I like have kind of tweaked to wherever I am musically. But yeah, it's really special to finally honestly like release these songs in, as my first little like full length record. And it was made with Lewis in LA, who he was, the reelin guy, and he's got it all dialed in. So I think even though the songs, some are old, some are new, different stylistically, I think there's that through line, um, yeah.
Yeah, the Strike EP, that was really cool too. Like that,
Yeah.
those tunes are really good. So like, okay. So that kind of took focus, and these other tunes kind of took were set in the back
Like a
burner.
backseat.
Yeah.
That's right. They were waiting, and then I was like, "Well, that's not fair. They're so good. They deserve to see the light of day." You know.
No, this record's awesome. Like a Tidal
Thank
Wave,
you.
that one gets stuck in my head all the
Yes.
time. Is that an old one? What's that one about? Like
Dude, that
that
is the
or
oldest song.
yeah?
Oh no, you can know. No, this guy stood me up on a date, and I knew him really well, and so I was about to have to go see him because he worked at my yoga studio,
Oh
and I
shit, yeah.
sang this song on the way there that I just wanted to beat the shit out of him. Honestly, I was so mad. This was my first song ever to get a mosh pit.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it was two people, but I mean,
It's a
I was
pit.
like, don't forget. Yeah, yep, the pit is a pit.
Oh wow.
But yeah, that's the oldest one. That one came out of the archives because I was like, and I actually hadn't played it in years and never had played it with Late Slip ever. But I was like, I always liked that song. And it was just such a bop. And I was like, you know what? Let's get it out. Let's get it out of the archives. And I'm really glad we recorded it because it's really fun.
Yeah,
You know?
I guess it's got that Ramonesy because it's got
Yeah.
a feel to it with that
Mm-hmm.
kind of tonality. I can see a mosh
Yep.
pit going. All
Yep.
right.
Yep. Yeah. It's also like my Grease moment. Like, if I was ever gonna like
Yeah, there we go.
like the Pink Ladies.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's very much, we were so invested in like the girl gang in the background, Yeah.
But okay, so shit, I forgot I was gonna ask. Now I'm thinking of
Oh,
the
no, no, no.
mosh pit.
Yeah. wait, what did you say? You said something like about, oh, you wanted to know about this record and where the songs
Yeah.
came from, and yeah, where Late Slip started and stuff.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I guess okay, so where's the name Late Slip come from as well?
Okay.
Like
Yes, late slip is because I almost didn't graduate high school because I was always late for first period.
okay.
I'm such a good kid. I'm such a rule follower, but I'm always like 3 to 4 minutes late at least. So my first period teacher was a hard ass, and he made participation 60% of our grade
Oh
for
shit. Yeah.
second semester senior year because it was first period. He didn't want people to not go. Yeah, so I thought that was funny to make fun of myself, and I always like band names that are like nostalgic,
Yeah.
like school, like kid stuff, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
so yeah.
That's awesome. Like now I remember what I was gonna say.
Yes.
So listening to this record, going through it a bunch of times to get ready to talk with you, like my girlfriend was listening with me. She's like, "Who
Yeah.
are these guys?" I'm like, I explain who. She's like, I would go to see these guys. They're really good.
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah.
they're in New York. She's like, we should go. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
So I kind of want to cap it by saying this record, this full length EP is amazing, and it's an
you.
incredible and after listening to your other EPs, it's an incredible capstone, I think, of where you're at now, and like
Thank
I'm
you.
really excited to hear. Or to have everyone else hear it, and like what's I guess
Thank you.
to move on from this, what
Yeah.
do you have coming up? What can people look forward to? When's the record coming out?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So the record comes out Friday, June 7th, which is Prince's birthday, which I thought was
Nice.
very good vibes. The record is a Gemini, if you were wondering. So am I. Yeah. So that's happening June 7th. And then that night in Brooklyn, we're doing a release show at this cute venue called Sleepwalk, which is going to be awesome. And then we are playing, I think it's our sixth or seventh Rockaway Music Fest this summer. There's a music festival at Rockaway Beach every summer. And we've been very, very lucky to be invited every year to play that. And so we're playing that July 21st. It's just a fun beach party. It's Tidal Wave, but in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a 60s beach party. It's so cute. They have a beautiful amphitheater. Yeah. And then we're playing this Friday in Brooklyn. So we have a lot of like hometown shows this summer, playing again in August, basically once a month. And then it's been I've been hanging on to this album for so long and preparing to release it that I really wanted to take the time to give it its due and to really like be proud of that. Like sometimes you're so, and especially I think coming from the background that we both did, like academically with music, that you're so like achievement oriented and like, oh, this has to be good and I have to like do everything right. And now it's like, I want to give myself the space and time to like appreciate what I've made and like allow it to land.
Yeah,
I just really want to do that and give myself a moment to be proud of that rather than being like, and now I have to like make another record and do all this stuff. And like, and it's a lot for me to just let it sink in. So, and there's vinyl. There's going to be vinyl records that'll be available and CDs because people still have cars. And, yeah. So I'm going to let this record live. And that's that. And then play a bunch of cute shows to support that.
That's awesome. Are you doing any out-of-town dates?
At the moment, no. We just played South by, which was really fun.
Sick.
Yes, that was our first South by, and that was super cool. And I am also right now finishing a second degree in nutritional sciences.
Yeah.
That I've been working on for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Which is really hard and really cool.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And yeah. And it's exactly like you made me realize, like, as we were talking, that it is the most serious, like, it's exactly like the this version of like the science version of the classical music degree, you know, where it's like all serious, and like the route you should go with your nutritional sciences major is to be a registered dietitian and stuff. But 3/4 of the way through, I'm like, but like food science, you guys, like food science is really cool. And I'm finding myself fighting, being like, no, I should do the serious version. And I'm like, no, gonna do the fun version. Gonna like go rogue and do something crazy. But my gift to myself once I graduate, which will be in December, is to make a little tour and to just, because I won't have to be like, where will I do my homework at night? Like on the road. But you know what I mean? It's like so hard to be, especially in school as a grown-up. Like, wow. That is a whole thing. But but that is my
You're calculating everything you gotta do later. This has gotta be done. I can't fuck around. I gotta make sure this is done. You know.
Exactly. I'm like, oh yes, I can have fun, but then I have to somehow get back these 2.5 hours. Spend, you know.
Oh yeah,
totally get it.
Because I went to Cleveland State for music therapy, so it was like science and music. So I'm and like it's not like to the level that you're studying now with nutrition. Like there's way more. Like I had to take anatomy, and I was like, oh my god, like
it's
that was
nuts.
a tough one.
No, but your program is difficult. Our drummer Janet just graduated from NYU's music therapy program.
Robbins,
and she was really miserable. Like it was so hard. And she had like, and we were in school at the same time, and when she graduated, she was like, it's coming for you. Your life will change. Like, but it's really hardcore. Like doing this, but it's really special to give yourself that gift and to just keep learning. I think that's the goal. We just have to keep learning, and like whatever like makes us like question things and get excited and curious. Like that's important. You have to do that, you know? And thank you for reminding me that in this conversation, like how special that is and how important it is to go through all these twists and changes, because that's what makes us who we are.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having this conversation. It's been an incredibly uplifting and inspiring chat, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Honestly, it's been a total joy, and I appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for listening to my record. And please tell your girlfriend I said thank you too. And we will come to you guys sometime, but also if you want to come for the beach party, that would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig of the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.